Well, hello there, and welcome to the podcast, to the third season of Queerly Overthinking. Y'all, I'm your host, Adam Harper, and it has been a hot minute. Let me just put that out there right now. I have had so many plans, and then all those plans change, and, I think that's just part of life. And at this point, I should expect that a little bit more often, that, no matter what we expect or hope to happen, life has a funny way of just making things turn upside down. And it's like, oh, we're going to be doing that instead. But all through it, I've been learning how to find a new rhythm amongst all the change. So part of that new rhythm is getting back to the podcast, and it feels so good to be back in the recording studio, so to speak, and to sit down with y'all and to share with you how the first, half of my year has been going. It's been a lot, honestly. It feels like it's been a decade. Whether you are new to the podcast or you're a longtime listener, the podcast wrapped up late last year, and again, can't believe it's been almost a year since things wrapped up, and a lot has happened in my life since. And if you follow me on social, you probably have an idea of where I'm going to be going with this episode. Obviously, it's in the title too. But again, wherever you're listening from, however long you've been listening, I'm really glad that you're here, and I am excited to be back. I feel like it's time to share my story a little bit more broadly in a content medium that I'm really excited to explore more. And honestly, half the time I feel like I'm figuring things out still. So, it's been an adventure just figuring out how to incorporate video into the podcast and finding other ways to make it more fun and engaging. Okay, so what is new for season 3? Well, for starters, we've got a whole new website, a new look brought to you by yours truly. I used Figma Sites. It's kind of a new, I think it's still in beta, but I was really excited when it came out, and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to design a site, let me work on the Queerly Overthinking site. And I'm very into stickers right now, so that's the whole new branding direction for this. And, I'm not mad about it. This new direction, I really feel is a beautiful next natural step for the podcast, and I feel like it's giving me the chance to explore the creativity in new ways. And it, so going forward, I'm trying to find a new rhythm, as mentioned earlier, not only for the release of podcast episodes, but then the content that I'm going to be sharing too. So I'm going to be aiming to release at least one episode a month. That's the hope. At least, it's the rhythm I'm going for, because in past seasons I was doing every other week, and while that was great, it was also a lot, and it was also just audio. So now that we're doing video this round, and exclusively on Spotify, by the way, the video will be available there, but audio will be available everywhere else. So wherever you want to listen, but definitely recommend checking out Spotify, because it'll be fun to share this space in more than just audio, so to speak. I feel like it's another way to add connection, another way to see like the body language, especially not just of myself, but like when I'm with another guest, being able to see how we both react with one another and share with one another. I feel like it's a beautiful thing to be able to have a conversation and to be able to listen in on a conversation, be able to see that conversation happening. And speaking of new things, drum roll please, I've launched a Patreon for the podcast. If you haven't already, join me over there and become an overthinker. There are 3 tiers, and each one has a different way to like being part of the show behind the scenes. So the first up, intern overthinkers, they are helping keep the podcast caffeinated. It's basically like the tip jar, and it helps keep things moving. Then we've got the associate overthinker. This tier specifically comes with a monthly note from yours truly and exclusive companion stickers for each episode that's released. And finally, there's the executive overthinker, which includes everything in the associate overthinker tier, plus the ability to vote on future episode content and questions, and you will get special shout outs in upcoming episodes. Y'all, I'm really hopeful about this. It's a first for this podcast, and it just feels right. It feels like I've been wanting to build a deeper connection with the people who listen to the podcast, and I feel like it is a way to build community. And here's the thing, community, I feel like is a word that we say a lot, but maybe we don't always remember all the beautiful facets of community. And, speaking from experience, like I feel like I say that word a lot, but I also feel like sometimes I forget the meaning behind it and the love behind community and just how community can show up. That is kind of a big reason why I wanted to start to actually build a space where we can engage with one another and to connect and continue to overthink, continue to carry the conversation throughout. And, the podcast has grown so far beyond than what I have originally expected. There are people who are listening to this all over the world, and that is just wild to me, So with that in mind, if you want to help shape where the podcast goes, and if you ever feel like Queerly Overthinking has made you laugh, made you feel seen, and made you feel heard, or helped you think differently, I'd love to have you join the Patreon, the community that we're building there. Okay, deep breath. We will get into the big story soon, one that I honestly never expected to be telling. But for now, thank you again for being here, truly. Thinking back to when I first started to realize that something wasn't quite right, to kind of paint the picture a little bit more, I had a mole on my left ear that I had removed in July of 2024, and I was told it was not cancerous at the time. And the reason I had it removed was because it started to get scabby and bleedy and irritated by the sun, etc. So even though it had been on my body for like years and years, like for as long as I can remember, it was concerning to me and I wanted it removed. 3 months later, I started to notice lumps forming on the left side of my neck. And I was like, this is strange. What are these? And like, is this a muscle knot? Did I pull something? Did I lift something weird? Sometimes they would ache, but they weren't painful, and honestly, I still was like, is this something to be concerned about? One thing to mention on this too is that I was very asymptomatic throughout the development of these lumps. I was just like, still going to the gym, still feeling well, I didn't have a temperature, like basic symptoms you would think of, like, am I sick? Like, what's going on? Like, very asymptomatic throughout all this process. I really started to take notice, though, around my 30th birthday in October. And that's when I was like, okay, these are not going away. These have been here a while. What is going on? Again, I'm not a healthcare professional. Like, how could I have known that this had anything to do with the mole that I had removed earlier in the year? And as I started mentioning it to friends and family and a few healthcare professionals, most people thought it was like swollen lymph nodes from like allergies or a little virus, because it was like the fall time. And some had said it might have been like, change of seasons, but it's still hot here in Texas. So I was also like very skeptical of a lot of things, but I was also very like still concerned about what is going on. And many folks also shared like, oh, they'll go down on their own. Just, this was a lot of what I was hearing. Because again, how could we have known? But unfortunately, they did not go down. They continued to grow. And eventually, I saw my primary care doctor for my annual visit at the end of the year. And I was like, hey, what are these? They're on the left side of my neck and also growing under my jaw. And it started to grow towards the back of my neck. And they're just growing. They're multiplying. And they're not hurting exactly, but every now and then they'll ache, So I was just like very much just giving all the information that I knew and understood. And we decided to go ahead and get an ultrasound. That happened in late December. And initially, the ultrasound showed like something wasn't quite right for sure, but we weren't sure. It's amazing with modern day medicine how much we are able to know and find out and discover, and yet how much we still don't know and have to do continued testing and diagnostic. At this point, though, the largest conglomerate or like bunch collection of lymph nodes was measuring about 2.5 to 3 centimeters wide, which is insane. Like, get a tape measure out and just picture that in your neck. And mind you, I was still living my life. After the ultrasound, went to Sydney for New Year's, which was an amazing trip, like trip of a lifetime. I'm so glad I was able to go. And when I came back, that's when we started to figure out what was actually going on. So still no answers yet, but in late January, I was referred to a specialist, and we did another ultrasound and a biopsy this time. By then, the largest lymph node conglomerate had grown to about 4.6 centimeters. Again, measure that on a tape measure and picture that inside your neck. At this point, I remember thinking, okay, something truly is not right here. So there's before, and then there's the moment you find out that it's cancer. And what it's actually like to hear those words or to see them, in my case, the words metastatic malignant melanoma. Surreal and numb don't even begin to describe it. It felt like the rug was just pulled out from under me. I remember reading the report, just reading it, and I was actually here at my desk, and I, in all at once, gasped, cried, shouted, and just let my head drop. Yeah. I remember saying out loud, "What? Like, what does this even mean?" And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I just sat there. I mean, who expects that? No one expects to be told that you have cancer. So there's no real way to prepare yourself emotionally for it. And you just get dropped into it. One thing to mention, though, that I had initially been told it was cancer, but it wasn't until 3 weeks later, after doing some scans, that we discovered it was stage 3 cancer. I didn't know this, but I guess there's a stage 0, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. So stage 3, I'm like, oh my gosh. But when I had initially read that first report, I was here home in Texas, and I had only shared it with a very small number of people, honestly, just 2 people at first. And I want to address this specifically. I've talked about this on the podcast before, about how there are people in our lives who are like daily subscribers, and people in our lives who, you know, they're the ones that you talk about the day-to-day, the things that you ate, how you were feeling, that random thought you had while you were, you know, working on something or during lunch, you know, those people. When something like this happens, something big happens, it's hard because you want to tell people, but thinking about my experience, I had to brace myself whenever I would share with someone, because once you share it, you're also holding space for their response to it as well. At first, it was really hard trying to navigate who to tell and when and how, not because I was trying to hide anything. I'm a pretty open book, pretty open person. I mean, heck, I'm talking about this on a podcast. But because I was still figuring out what was happening, you know, when you're figuring things out in real time, repeating yourself is exhausting. And especially when your relationships, even your close ones, exist for different reasons. Some people are your hype crew. Some people are your deep thinkers. Some people are your travel friends. Some people you go to the movies with. But not everyone is your medical support system. And that's okay. It's hard to balance this kind of thing when a big change, medical change, life-changing thing enters your life. So with all that said, I really had to give myself some grace and understanding with that, and just knowing that as much as I wanted to like scream this from the top of my lungs and to tell people, I really was trying so hard to be mindful of my energy and be mindful of the information that I knew, and to not go down rabbit holes, to just be like, this is the information I have in front of me right now. This is what I'm working with, while also balancing so many other things out in life. So after I found out, I ended up going out with a friend that evening, and we went to a play together. And honestly, it was the distraction I didn't know I needed. And I even have a selfie from that night, and it's wild to look back at that moment, at that photo, because I see myself smiling in that photo, that beautiful moment with someone that I love and care about. And it's also the night that I found out I had cancer. So to see that photo and to see that duality, it stays with you. Once I got the diagnosis, that's when everything started to move pretty quickly. I was immediately referred to the best specialists here in Dallas. And honestly, I'm so incredibly grateful that I live in a city with such incredible healthcare access. And I also recognize the privilege that I have to be able to have that, and to be seen by trained specialists who know exactly what to look for and how to move forward. I actually met with my surgeon recently as like a follow-up appointment. She was so sweet. She shared with me, because I was waiting a while in the waiting room, and that's totally fine with me. I will wait till the cows come home to see my doctors. But she shared with me that there was someone who had driven 5 hours to come and see her, and that they had to do some important things in office with them. I'm just like, take your time. I'm okay. Please, I'm all good. Very quickly, I was plugged into a full network of care. I met with, as mentioned, my surgeon. These were all specialists, not only in their field with melanoma, but a radiologist, a hematologist, a dermatologist, even an ophthalmologist. Y'all, they had to check my retinas, because you can get melanoma not on just your skin, but inside your eyeballs and inside your mouth. So I also met with my dentist to help rule out any oral cancer. But speaking of my ophthalmologist, I didn't know you could have an ultrasound performed on your eyeball. They literally took the thing and they stuck it in my eyeball, and I was just like, okay, this is happening. So because we went through all of those appointments and doctor visits and things like that, it's because we were all trying to find the primary source of the cancer, because it hadn't yet revealed itself. The wild thing is that a majority of them were part of the same hospital system. So each specialist had a pretty good idea of who I was, what my situation was, because they were able to share notes and test results and everything behind the scenes, and just talking through different treatment plans together, which again just made me feel like I was in very capable hands throughout all this. But it was still just a lot, a lot. I remember specifically one day in particular, I left my apartment at 7 a.m., had 3 different doctor appointments that day, also taking work calls in between and trying to get any work done that I could, and I didn't get home until 7 p.m. I was absolutely exhausted, and I just remember thinking, again, how grateful I am that I live within an hour of world-class healthcare. And how truly grateful I am to all of the people who have taken the time to help me throughout this process, all the healthcare professionals. As far as actual treatment, melanoma care has actually come a long way, not just in the last 20 years, but even the last 5 years, and even in the last year alone, there have been major advancements in both surgery and immunotherapy. And immunotherapy specifically, not chemotherapy, which is crazy. It basically tells your immune system to go fight cancer. It like gives your immune system the green light to go and destroy it. Like it is so cool. It's like Star Trek level like medical stuff. It's crazy. I was lucky enough to receive a fairly new combination of immunotherapy drugs, which we did before surgery, which again, this is crazy because the treatment actually started to shrink the tumor, which made surgery that much more effective and recovery a lot more manageable. I will say though, immunotherapy still packs a wallop. I had some pretty hefty side effects, including losing 10 pounds in about 2 weeks, which was a little scary. I mean, if I'm being honest, it was a lot, but I also was just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to keep on going to my appointments and everything. And it was also a lot of needles. I'm not someone who enjoys getting poked with needles, but I've been poked with needles more and more times than I can count this year. And I'm just having to work through that. While I was undergoing treatment, a second opinion on the original biopsy revealed conflicting evidence from the initial pathology report. This finally gave us the clarity we were looking for, the biggest question we had finally being answered. It was indeed the primary source of the cancer. I was honestly so relieved when we finally had this answer. Up until this point, it had been considered as an unknown primary tumor. It was just a lot of relief to just finally know where it came from rather than wondering and just hoping that it wouldn't come back, because there's so many unknown primaries can be so fascinating and just spontaneous from what I understand, or just they can come, they can go. I was very relieved to finally have an answer. I can't even imagine though what surgery would have been like if the tumor hadn't shrunk, because it was in my neck. Like it was literally like right there. So if you're wondering why there probably aren't many selfies of me during that time, like of the first half of the year, that's probably why. It is because I wasn't taking them or I wasn't sharing them. And it's not to say that, I was embarrassed by it, but it was more so just like emotionally I was, again, processing through a lot of things. And it was hard to see something like that growing on the side of my neck. Day-to-day life during treatment meant a lot of appointments. And honestly, I went to about 90% of them by myself. That's just because I live here in Texas by myself. I have friends, close friends nearby as well, and family nearby, like in-state and around states and things like that. But, I'm just single Pringle out here. Most of these appointments also included infusions, which was also a new experience for me. I had not experienced an infusion before, and it's a few hours at least to work the drugs into the system to help fight the cancer. I am grateful that I haven't had to do chemo or radiation, and I hope that continues to be the case, because even just immunotherapy and surgery, it just brought a whole new layer into my life. Like, okay, you've got appointments now, you've got medications, you've got blood work, you're still trying to keep a normal routine at the same time. And I kept working through most of it. And if I'm being honest, I'm glad that I did, because it gave me something to focus on. It gave me a distraction. It gave me some sense of normalcy. And I knew that I also had to conserve my energy and to protect my capacity and give myself that space to keep showing up for myself and for what mattered the most, which was to just keep going. So that's what I did. And it was so hard. Physically, this was intense, but emotionally, that was a whole nother level entirely. I think at first my mindset was like, okay, this isn't my first trauma. I've been through hard things so far, and that helped me compartmentalize a lot of things. Again, I knew how to stay focused, how to keep going, but it really hit me the day that I found out what surgery would actually involve. When I was told that there was going to be nerve damage, possibly permanent nerve damage, and mobility issues that would likely require physical therapy for recovery. Processing all of that just made everything feel so much more real that I hadn't quite yet just figured out how to navigate. I remember walking out of that appointment and trying to hold it all together as best I could, and I just kept repeating myself as I left the elevator and I was walking to the parking lot. I was like, get to your car. Get to your car. Get to your car. And the second that I closed the car door, I broke. I bawled. I cried so hard. And, like one of those like full body, like heaving cries, and I'm not anti-crying. I mean, I believe in crying. I cry at movies. I cry when something moves me. It's healing for me, but this was a different kind of cry. It was the first time I really felt how much I was carrying. And what's wild is that around that same time, I had a dream where, it's like one of those vivid dreams. Like your subconscious just basically hands you the truth because your subconscious is processing things on a different level as well. And in this dream, I was at my desk and I suddenly just like flipped it over and I screamed at the top of my lungs, I have stage 3 cancer. And I just let out this gut-wrenching scream at the top of my lungs. And after that, I just started to cry so hard in that dream, and it just jolted me awake, like one of those dreams where you just like you just gasp and you just like wake up instantly. And that moment has really stuck with me because I feel like it was my body and my subconscious, my soul just telling me that I hadn't been giving myself the space to really feel everything and to say everything. And there's a certain kind of emotional armor I feel that you put on when you're trying to keep your life together while going through something so huge, and you become your own protector, your own processor, your own planner. And I wasn't making the time to feel the things when I was just trying to keep up, but the feelings come anyway, and when they hit hard. Even with everything happening, there were a few people and experiences that really kept me grounded. And I mentioned this earlier about community, and it's kind of what I want to focus on next, because I have never felt more supported by community than I did during this time. I now know what it truly feels to be held and surrounded by people who care about you in more ways than I've ever felt before. And just thinking about this brings up such a deep feeling of gratitude, because when I left the Mormon church, I didn't just leave a belief system. I left a built-in support system. And that was one of the scariest things that I had done in my early adulthood life when I first moved here to Dallas, especially coming from a global faith where no matter what church building you go to, there's always going to be this unspoken understanding that you're all part of the same support system, and people show up for you in one way or another. They bring you meals, they help you move, they check in on you, and there's a whole system and rhythm to it and structure for caring for one another. So when I moved to Dallas, I didn't have that anymore. I didn't really know anyone. I had a few casual connections, but for the most part, I was starting from scratch, rebuilding my life after college and without that safety net. And to now look at the community that I've built since then, the community that I've connected with, and the people who I've stood with and who have stood by me, it's really emotional and overwhelming in the best way. As I've started to share what has been going on, the weight feels so much lighter. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. The more people knew, the more supported I felt, the more loved I felt. And people were so kind. People have offered to bring meals during my recovery, sent gift cards, and donated to help cover food and medical costs. Many folks I've known for years, but even those that I've met recently have shown up in this way, and this kind of generosity and that willingness to show up. It just, words escape me for how incredibly grateful I have been, and I hope to continue to be, and to continue to not only embrace this community, but to also continue to give to this community. And seeing that reflection of what I've spent years building and connecting and cultivating really was a reminder to me that we can have a sense of belonging for ourselves, and we don't have to wait around for it to be handed to us, and we don't have to join any particular organization or group. You can make it. And it was eye-opening for me. One thing that I do consider, though, about building a community is that it takes work, to be vulnerable, to allow people into your life, to show up. I still think back of the first times that I met someone, and how at first I was just a casual acquaintance, or we didn't really know each other very well, but then we just kept hanging out. We kept deciding to go grab a bite or go do an activity together, and then that person has become a close friend, or it's amazing to see when you can look back at all the decisions of did you have fun with that person? Do you want to hang out with them again? Yeah, okay, great. And then it's a repeat and repeat, so it takes work, but it's worth it. Now that I've kind of laid all this out, and I've been asking myself, where am I at now? And what does recovery and healing look like for me right now? I'm still in it in a way, but I also feel like I'm in someplace new. And right now I'm focused on my physical mobility. So I go to physical therapy regularly, and I'm seeing progress, which is amazing. It is crazy to see how much surgery can really impact something, but I'm not expecting immediate perfection. And I think that's the one thing I instantly wanted to click in my mind, is I'm learning to expect progress and to accept progress no matter how big or how small it is. There have been low moments where I felt where can I only go from here but up? There's this lyric from Kelly Clarkson that I love. She says, "I found the basement of rock bottom." And I feel like I have found my personal basement of rock bottom going through this journey. And does that mean that I'll never find the basement of rock bottom again? I don't know. Universe, if you're listening, I would really appreciate 10 years before the next big life thing. Like, please. But still, I can see the positive person I strive to be, continuing to show up and continuing to grow throughout all of this. And there was one moment that stands out to me that I wanted to share. I was on the phone with a healthcare assistant. She was helping me to schedule an appointment, and we ended up just having this really beautiful moment and connection with one another. I opened up to her. She was being so kind. I was just sharing, what I was going through, and she opened up to me and shared her journey of going through her own cancer recovery and everything. And it was so kind and so sweet. She was amazing. And later, when I came in for that appointment we scheduled, she recognized me. She sought me out and she gave me the biggest hug and said, "You're going to get through this." And she then told me that after her surgery, they told her to rest. And she was like, "Honey, I'm going to Vegas." I loved that so much. Her refusal to stop living her life and a reminder that joy still exists. So I brought her a gift. I can't remember exactly how much later, in a few weeks, a month or more later, but I brought her a gift and I was like, "I'm going to Vegas." And I did. I saw Lady Gaga and Kelly Clarkson, and it was incredible. These days, I am back to traveling, going slowly, gently, carefully. That's also how I'm doing at the gym, just slowly, gently, carefully. Even before surgery, literally the day before surgery, I was still going to the gym. And afterwards, I've had a few weeks of restricted movement from that, I've been working my way back and rediscovering where my body is at now and remembering where it used to be and learning how I can bring it all into balance again. Again, it's very much of like that expect progress, accept progress in any form. For me, it's also just not trying to get back to quote unquote normal. It's honoring this version of myself and continuing that healing process. And my body continues to surprise me as some nerves are slowly coming back. It's just amazing to see the human body and what it's capable of. And, I don't know where this healing journey is going to take me, and I don't know what's next. But what I do know is I'm here, and I'm taking this one day at a time, and I'm working through the fear that says you could lose everything tomorrow, so you better be grateful. I'm trying to let that go. What if I was just grateful now? Period. That's where I am. I'm where I'm at now. And I'm genuinely grateful for that. Genuinely grateful to be here and to share this with you. Well, I love to wrap up the podcast by sharing a quote. And today's quote comes from the incredible Audrey Hepburn. They said, "Pick the day, enjoy it to the hilt, the day as it comes, people as they come. The past, I think, has helped me appreciate the present, and I don't want to spoil any of it by fretting about the future." Absolutely. 100%. Double tap. Subscribe. Well, y'all, that is a wrap on the first episode of season 3. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to be back. So happy to be creating and exploring content in this new way and in video of all things. I genuinely appreciate you being here. And whether you've listened to the episode or if you watched the episode on Spotify, just thank you. And don't forget to check out the Patreon. Just search Queerly Overthinking on Patreon or head to the brand new website at www.queerlyoverthinking.com, and also follow along on socials at Queerly Overthinking on TikTok and Instagram for all updates, including when I show off this episode's companion sticker and what it looks like. I'm very excited. I have it right here on the desk and I'm like, oops, so good, so good. But with all this said, thanks again for being here, and I'll see you next time.